Welcome to Ducks on the Pod, a baseball podcast with your hosts, Matt Welker and Jake Mosley. Welcome back, everybody, to Ducks on the Pod. My name's Matt. That's Jake. How we doing today, Jake?
Doing great. Excited to get into the National League here. So,
let's
get talking.
I know. We've been chumming through the American League, waiting to get to the National League, chomping at the bit to talk about our teams and the teams we typically play against. So how do you think we did in the American League so far?
I'm pretty happy with it. Honestly, for first-time podcasters, I think there's definitely some room to grow. But all in all, I'm impressed with the production quality. I'm impressed with our preparation, our content. So let's just keep the ball rolling and keep improving as we go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I honestly thought our first couple episodes were just going to be like dog shit because we've never done this before. And it was going to be we were going to be fumbling all over our words. But I think we've done a great job. I'm excited to keep going.
Yeah, I always like to listen to it back and pick up little things of like what we can improve on. Just easy stuff like not talking over each other and whatnot kind of like stands out to me. But I don't know. What about you? What's the biggest point of improvement that we need to make?
I think our biggest thing is talking over each other. But I think now that we've gotten better at preparing for each episode, it's a lot easier too because then we can actually just listen to each other. And that way we're not just looking things up while we're talking.
Yeah,
that's still going to
helpful.
happen, but it's definitely still helpful. This microphone won't stop moving. Also, you may notice I have a completely different background. We're currently house sitting and dog sitting for the parents this week. So this episode definitely will be a little bit different background, but we'll figure out if next week's is or not. All right.
It's an away game for you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then later this month, I got to watch my brother's dogs, but he only lives like 8 minutes from me. Yeah. Anyway, let's get after this, shall we?
Yeah, well, real quick before we hop into it, we're officially live on social media. So kind of big development. Twitter mostly right now. Obviously, we have the podcast coming out on YouTube and Spotify. So we'll get kind of keep that ball rolling there, but then we'll also get on TikTok here shortly. So hopefully you end up seeing some clips of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Jake's gonna be running most of the social media too. I'll be involved. I'll have my own accounts, but Jake's taking that. So we'll see how creative he gets with some TikToks. Especially with all the interesting nuggets you like to try to grab. That'd be a great move for short form content.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully our conversation lends itself to it pretty well. So
yeah,
it'll be a learning curve. I'm not on TikTok personally.
Neither am I.
So this will be it, but I think we can figure it out. We've figured everything else out so far. So
yeah, I only ever have it when previous ex-girlfriends have been obsessed with it and send me stuff so that I can actually look at it. But
nice. Always blame the ladies.
I just don't have it this time. All right, so I'm ready to get into this if you are.
Sure am.
All right, so like the other three divisions, what we've done, we're going to go in reverse standing orders from last year. So we got Marlins, Nats, Braves, and Mets were tied, but I think the tiebreaker went to the Braves. I forget. But we're going to go Mets, Braves, and then Phillies. All right, so starting with the 2025 Miami Marlins. Key departures. There are a couple. They're not like crazy because this roster stinks. Let's try to not talk about this nearly as much as we did for the White Sox. Can we at least agree on that?
Yes, deal.
All right, cool.
Happily.
All right, so key departures. I'll start with hitters so that we can just get to hitters, and then we'll pick it back up for pitchers in the second half of this team. So really the only person that of, I guess, importance that they lost was Jake Berger. He got traded to the Rangers. They got 3 prospects back, none of which are in the top 100. And then also Tim Anderson, if you want to call that a key departure, but I don't think he really did too much for them last year. I didn't put myself through the pain of looking up his 2024 stats.
Yeah, save your time.
Then the only key ad I put, I guess maybe you can lean into this a little bit more, but Matt Mervis, I know he got traded from the Cubs. I didn't really watch him too closely last year. You might have some better insight if it's even worth talking about.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of get started with the Matt Mervis piece. He's kind of a more seasoned minor league player, so he should pop into the Marlins organization and have playing time right off the bat. Right now, he's projected to be a platoon guy. I think that's probably all he projects out to be. He's a big guy, left-handed bat, has a ton of power. He hit like 1 million home runs in the minor leagues. In his short time up with the Cubs over the last couple of years, it hasn't been pretty. Just really finding hitting to be a big adjustment, kind of going up to that next level, which is something that you do see with some of these little bit older prospects. So he definitely has a tool in that power bat. I'm not sure if it will ever play at the MLB level. I certainly have concerns about it, but it's been such a limited sample size. He really only came up not necessarily as part of the Cubs' plan. It was more so just to supplement like certain injuries on the roster and try to find something that worked when they were struggling a little bit. So I don't expect a whole lot from him. However, he should at least have an opportunity to show what he's capable of here. And that kind of goes for the rest of these hitters too. They're all super young. They don't have a single hitter over 30, which I thought was interesting. That kind of jumped right out on the page, as well as the service time. They have one hitter, Jesus Sanchez, who's over the 3-year mark. Everybody else is below that. So it's kind of consistent throughout the whole team, but really is amplified with their lineup. And typically what that means is it's a growing year, right? You're probably not going to compete for anything, but it's really about getting exposure at the MLB level for a lot of these guys. And kind of seeing what you have before you can figure out, where organizationally you want to position yourself and who you want to stand behind, who you want to keep, and kind of what areas you have to look for opportunities to improve. So I think that's kind of the Marlins in a nutshell. So I'll turn it over to you with any of your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add, other than I do really like Xavier Edwards. Dude's just a very fun player to watch. It was actually pretty decent for them last year too. Him and Jesus Sanchez. I mean, like I was saying, there's not really a whole lot more to add. Even if you start looking into their prospects, they just got a new top 100 prospect in Starlin Kaba. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. He's a shortstop, but he's not even supposed to come up until 2027. He came over in that trade with the Phillies for a pitcher that we'll talk about here in just a second. But he is a switch hitter. He's got a great fielder, great arm, decent hitter. But again, he's not going to be up for at least 2 more years probably, unless he just has an absolute breakthrough in the minors. But like this lineup is pretty atrocious. It wasn't even good last year. Like they were about middle of the pack in average and stolen bases, but everything else was bottom 5, which their pitching wasn't a whole lot better. Again, we'll get into that as well. But I mean, I don't really have a whole lot more to talk about. One fun thing we love, as we've talked about many times, we love teams that have people with their own products on their roster. Of their 13 hitters, they have 2 that they drafted. Well, one drafted, one was an amateur free agent 6 years ago. Now, that is also because they produce studs and then they just trade them all away for all these different people. So that's not going to reflect it here. But, I mean, it's just sad because there's nobody waiting in the wings, at least not. That's supposed to be high caliber. And like Jesus Sanchez is their highest power rank and he's at 113. Like this isn't fun. No, yeah, like every single one of these guys say trade, purchased, waivers, trade, rule 5.
Yeah. Speaking of social media, there's been a post going around about who the Marlins would have if they were able to retain all of their studs that they've traded away. It's
I love
sickening.
seeing those posts.
Yeah, it's sickening.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, if you're looking for a glimmer of hope, maybe it's, hey, we draft guys, we get the most out of them, we develop them, but you just have to hope eventually they can retain them. So
I was gonna say, yeah, they've been doing that forever, and those trades you're talking about, like the Stanton, Yelich, Realmuto type trades, none of those prospects they got back, like they were supposed to be good, none of them panned out. Like not a single one of them. Like some of them like never even made it to the bigs, and even as minor leaguers, they like retired within the next like 2 or 3 years.
yeah,
Like that's just how sour all of those trades have been. And I'm sure if any Marlins fan is listening to this, they're not going to be too happy about that. But like, it's just, yeah.
it's the
I
reality of
mean,
the situation, unfortunately
yeah,
for them.
it sure is.
And they're in a brutal division, which we'll
Yes,
obviously
that
get
has
more
a
into
lot
as we
of good
go.
pitching.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it will be pretty for them. What do you see in the pitchers?
So pitchers, we got one massive key departure. So we got Jesus Luzardo being traded to the Phillies. That's the guy I was just referencing from the prospect of Starlin Caba. I really like Jesus Luzardo. He has battled some injuries and also not pitching as well, but he's the kind of guy that still has a whole bunch of tools that they're really going to miss out on. Then they also lost Braxton Garrett to UCL surgery in December. I counted that as a departure because he's not going to be on their team this year. And then key ads, they did, like, this isn't really that key of an ad, but their best pitching ad was Cal Quantrill, which, I mean, he power ranks well, but he's slated to be their fifth spot, which is an interesting point to point out now because, I mean, their rotation's really not bad. That's what's kind of funny about this team. Like Sandy Alcantara, if he can come back from his injuries and really just become that dude again and win some more awards, like he is filthy and is an ace for any squad. And then they added a reliever in Ronnie Henriquez, but he's probably their long reliever guy, and you're not going to see much out of him. Yeah, they do have two prospects, none of which are supposed to come up this year. Both next year. One's a lefty starter and one's a righty starter. I don't have a whole lot of things to dive in on them, but they're number 41 and number 84, and Thomas White and Noble Meyer, respectively. I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, I think the exciting part of this team is their starting rotation. So they might be exciting to watch, 2 out of 5 days. So like Sandy Alcantara, seeing how he bounces back after injury. I mean, Edward Cabrera at least has like really good stuff. He's got to rein it in a little bit and figure out how to pitch a little bit more. And then they also have Yuri Perez, who will be ready to go mid-season, who's kind of a pretty electric young pitcher. So at least if you are stuck watching a Marlins game, one, feel bad for you, but two, at least look towards some of their like starting pitching studs that are young. You'll want to know who they are by the time that they inevitably get moved to a different team, just like everybody else that preceded them.
So they also have Ryan Weathers, who you didn't mention. For some reason, I've never really liked him. I'm currently pulling up his Savant to try to figure out if he actually grades well or not, but it looks like he's got a great off-speed pitch, but he's the one lefty in the rotation. That's kind of the main reason I wanted to bring him up, but pretty much all of his pitches just go left and right. There's not a whole lot of up and down. But yeah, I mean, he's slated to be their two-man, but go ahead.
His numbers kind of surprised me a little bit, but yeah, I feel like every time I watch him pitch live, like it seems like he gets crushed.
Correct. And then every time I bet against him, he pitches out of his mind.
I like how you just took a stand there.
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to. I mean, that's like every single time the key departure for our next team. Every time he hit the bump, he always had to take the money line the other way, potentially the run line, because he stinks. All right, so I'm done with the Marlins. If you're ready to move on, I like their park. That's about it. It's one of the newer parks. The outside of it's sick.
Okay.
The outside of it's just very new age and cool looking.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can't stand their park. And a
All
lot of
right.
it is like it's just me. I'm very baseball traditionalist. Like the fish tank, like I get it. It's kind of cool, but I don't need that for my baseball experience.
You're
Like
such a
the
Cubs
lime
fan.
green, like lime or bright blue color scheme that they got going there. I get it. It's
Did,
Miami. It works, but it's just not my environment.
I want them to go back to the multicolored that they had, not the like light blue that they've been using with the black. Like back when they first became the Miami Marlins and not
Mhm.
Florida Marlins, that logo was awesome. Like
I
that's
don't
when I
remember
think
that off the top of my head. I'll look it up. We can
yeah,
move on though.
I'll use their logo as the team logo
Okay,
on
perfect.
for the pod. All right, moving forward to your Washington Nationals.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize I moved on from that M.
yeah, that logo is awesome.
Uh,
Yeah,
Now that I
now
see
it's
them both, like I realize it.
they still have the
So
M obviously, but they went back to those more like neutral colors, which I think is stupid because
yeah,
Miami is a very vibrant and colorful city. Like, why wouldn't you keep that old logo? That was
right.
sick too.
I feel like their uniforms and their whole branding should be like the Padres City
Mm-hmm.
Connect uniforms. Like that
Yes,
is Miami,
that's
but
kind of
it's
how
also
they
San
were with that
Diego.
M.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. But let's focus on the branding while we're bad. Maybe they're saving it for once they turn this whole thing around and
yeah,
start getting good.
to
I don't
get
know.
people excited again.
Yeah, but it sure would help me
Yeah.
enjoy a Marlins game.
All right. Going on to your nation's capital, key departures. So this is the one I was just alluding to. That's that me and you always bet against him. Patrick Corbin. So he's more in a key departure in the fact that he's finally off the books. Like they were paying this guy, I think, $100 million a year, something like that, to have like a 2-20 record. He's always reliable. He's always out there to like he's gonna make his starts, but that guy stunk. And then just randomly, when you decide to double your bet, he decides to have a career day. Anyway, uh, I have already brought up pitchers, so we're just gonna start with pitchers on this one.
Okay.
Um, then really the only other key departure I have is Jacob Barnes. It was just he ate 66 innings last year out of the pen. So key ads then. I call this an ad. They re-signed Kyle Finnegan, who was their saves leader for last year. I want to say he had like 36, something like that, which very nice for them, especially in a year that was supposed to be down for them. They also added Mike Soroka. Um, he's had his troubles the last couple of years, but he's had one start so far in spring training. It was very good. 3 innings, no runs allowed, and they added a lot of bullpen arms. It looks like 5 of the 8, and then even Derek Law was added just in February of last year. So kind of like 5.5 brand new arms in there. Um, Yeah, and then they do have 2 prospects waiting to come up, not until 2027 and 2026. So those guys, respectively, are ranked 69th and 78th in the MLB. And that's Travis Sikora and Jarlin Susana. Fun names that I wanted to make sure I said them. All right, that's all I've got for our little snippets. I'll let you talk some color commentary on their pitching staff.
Yeah, I think this is the great unknown. I mean, the whole team's kind of a great unknown, but the pitching staff, like Mackenzie Gore, we all should know who that is. He's very good. He'll
Very good.
be um, their starter on opening day, most likely. The rest of the guys, like Jake Irvin, Mitchell Parker, put together really good years. I don't think they really have been projected to continue that. So kind of interested to see how that pans out and if they can have some sort of quality depth within their starting rotation. I think that will be a huge key for them. You mentioned all the bullpen arms. Whenever that many bullpen arms change hands in the offseason, I feel like half the battle is like, are any of them going to be good? You probably don't need all of them to be
Yeah.
good. You just need a couple quality pieces. But also another part of that is like, how does the manager define roles early enough to where it's beneficial and you aren't like deep into May before you start getting any semblance of a identity and game plan towards the back end of the game. So kind of just need somebody to pop out early and stand out as a quality arm for them, and that really, I think, boosts their chances of winning some games. And then, I mean, I think the offense is more exciting, so I'll kind of stop there if you have any other comments about pitching.
Yeah. No, I mean, that top three is real good in Gore, Urban, and Parker. Which I looked up Mitchell Parker earlier because I don't think I ever watched a single game of him starting last year. And he's got a full year's service time, so he must have been up at least the vast majority of last year. But I was looking him up a little bit earlier. I don't have any interesting tidbits to add on him, but I didn't realize he was as good as he is. Kyle Finnegan's pretty elite. They just need to have better offense to get them in better position to win some games and actually close out games. But other than that, the rest of their bullpen kind of stinks. They're all in the hundreds, so like they're not the worst. But like Derek Law being their second best reliever just shocks me. Just from what I know of the guy, he doesn't really throw with crazy stuff, but he is reliable. Whatever. I mean, outside of that, their bullpen's not looking too hot. But I mean, yeah, they needed to definitely bolster this because last year they were in the lower third in relief, ERA, WHIP, Ks per nine, all that jazz. Like they're not able to. It doesn't appear that they were able to close games. Like their best stat was walks per nine. So, I mean, yeah, that's great, but who cares?
That's not enough, especially in this division.
Correct. Yeah, outside of that, I don't really have anything else to add for.
I do have
pitchers.
one more comment on pitchers. Completely forgot. This is what happens. I don't write down notes. They're all mental notes. I skipped over one. One guy who I think is interesting, especially if they aren't getting the quality starts that they need at the tail end of their rotation, is DJ Hers. He was up last year a little bit. He had 19 starts. A little bit on the erratic side, but he has like really, really good pitches. His K per nine was at 10.76. So he has like really, really good stuff if he can control it. He's no longer really like a prospect, but I think he's somebody to keep an eye on who has an outside chance, probably won't make the starting roster for opening day, but they at least have a little bit of depth there that they can dip into. If their rotation isn't delivering what you would expect.
Do you know this guy just because of the Cubs?
No, actually, I had no idea he was on the Cubs. I remembered him from last year, and when we were prepping for the show, I was actually surprised that he wasn't projected to be on their opening day roster. And at first, I'm like, oh, is he injured? No, he appears to be healthy right now, projected to be the number one starter in AAA. He hardly has any service time. It's literally just 19 games, 19 starts. But yeah, he has some good strikeout stuff. So whether or not that projects out to be a starter or if he moves to the pen, loses a pitch, and just is a lefty, like dominant guy, I could see it going either way. But at least he's got a tool for a pitching staff that I think is a little bit thin for the most part.
Yeah, I would agree that they are very thin. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
All right, I'll let you start with hitters.
All right. They didn't really have any key departures, at least not that I could find. Key adds, so they did add Nate Lowe or Lau. We never know which one's which on this pod, and two of them are on the same damn team. They brought back Josh Bell. They signed Paul DeYoung, who randomly has just strokes of baseball genius, I feel like. But that's it for their key ads. They did add Ahmed Rosario, but he is kind of hit or miss all the time. He's more of a bench guy. But yeah, this is where this team starts to get real interesting.
I'm excited for him.
Yeah, this lineup's going to be very exciting this year, especially with the addition of Dylan Cruz. Baseball's I have number 4. Fangraphs has number 3 overall prospect. He was up for 35 days last year. I don't have his stats handy. I feel like he didn't do very well, but so far in spring training, so it's only 15 plate appearances, so take this for whatever you want to. He is currently hitting 462 with a 1148 OPS. So the guy's doing what he's supposed to do right now in spring training, just hitting the ball, getting on it, getting right for the season, especially being slated in there at the 2 spot for their lineup. But I mean, just going down their entire lineup, there's not a guy I hate. So you go CJ Abrams, fast shortstop, loves to gamble night before day games. Dylan Cruz, James Wood, who I'm so excited to watch. That dude just absolutely crushes the ball, and he looks like a skinny Josh Bell, but is so fast too.
I think it's funny that they're on the same team because they really do look alike.
They are. I didn't look at their measurements or anything, but they're probably the exact same height. But I would venture to say Josh Bell probably weighs 50 more pounds than he is.
Yeah, they're in a different weight class.
But then continuing to go, obviously Josh Bell, and then Luis Garcia, Keibert Ruiz. Which I'm pretty sure that guy destroyed the Reds in Cincinnati in the opening series last year. And like I was saying before, Paul DeYoung, that guy's got strokes of genius, and Jacob Young, which that I feel like last year he also did some damage to some teams. This is gonna be an exciting one to watch, especially to see, like I was saying with the Marlins, see how they hit some of this really good pitching in this division.
Yeah, I'm excited for them because they have all of these prospects who are ready to go. They're all young. They're all key spots in their lineup. They're relying on these guys, and they're all top pedigree prospects to where they actually can deliver. Unlike we just talked about the Marlins, who have a bunch of young guys who probably won't be able to compete for the majority of the season. So CJ Abrams, we all know he's obviously an absolute stud. I'm really excited that Dylan Cruz is projected to hit second. That's exactly where I would put him if I'm managing the Nationals. You have James Wood and Lowe behind him. So he's in the middle of a bunch of lefties as a righty hitter.
A lot of lefties.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's a normal splits guy, and hitting against lefties would be ideal for him. So kind of taking a young player with a lot of hit tool and being able to put him in an advantageous spot just based on line of construction. Hopefully that treats him well. He has very, very little just professional baseball under his belt.
Yeah.
And what he's done so far has been good, not great. But I think just based on where he was drafted and how quickly he got to the MLB, they clearly like what they see. So I'm not sure that the numbers from a minor league or even last year and his little time at the major leagues really means a whole lot. I'm certainly not looking into it. But then you have Josh Bell, who I'm not a huge fan of. He can hit some tanks. It seems like he has a lot of multi-home run games. I know. I'm surprised you didn't share him.
Because I'm pro baseball. I'm not trying to take stances on players. All right.
All right. Maybe you should.
Many times already. I don't love the Josh Bells and the Josh Naylors of the world. Fine, I'll get it out there.
He's an interesting guy though, because it seems like he's very streaky, almost to the point where when he's not going well, you can hide him in this lineup. They have enough other pieces. He's a DH, so it's a free space. You can put anybody in there. You have Rosario, Alex Call even is all right. Will you be excited if those are your DH? Probably not. But they're certainly good enough to cover for a struggling Josh Bell if it comes to that. And when he's hot, he can, pile up home runs very, very quickly. So definitely an advantageous guy to have in their lineup or in the right lineup. And I think this is the right lineup for him. And then Luis Garcia, he's really he has 3 years of service time, really only played the last 2 years though with any sort of regularity. He's improved his slash line. I mean, he hits in the 270s, 280s range, has a little bit of pop. So he's a pretty good, kind of unknown like second base, back end of the middle of the order hitter.
Crazy to me that he is power ranked 81.
Yeah, his numbers are very impressive, and he like improved across the board, outside of like strikeout to walk ratio for him, but like it stayed consistent. It's not like he had a big drop off in anything, but he improved across the board in average, power, slugging, OPS, all that good stuff. So yeah I kind of like their lineup, and then I think they actually have one of the best 9 hitters in baseball, and Jacob Young. Like he is super fast. Definitely like it's not a free out in their lineup. So having that at the bottom of the order is kind of
good replacement for Lane Thomas.
Very good replacement for Lane Thomas.
Lance.
I don't know why I said Lance. I clearly know his name, but he's like in a prototypical like secondary leadoff guy at the end of the order.
Yeah.
So he should be able to turn this lineup over and kind of get into those bigger bats at the top fairly consistently. So yeah, I don't think they have like star power necessarily yet. I think it's too early to say that outside of CJ Abrams. But if Cruz and Wood can really, live up to expectations, like this lineup actually looks pretty good.
Yeah. And you know what's one of my favorite things about this 26-man roster is that in exchange for a season and like 2 months of Juan Soto, so obviously the Nationals gave up Juan Soto. They also gave up Josh Bell, which clearly they have him back again. But they got Mackenzie Gore, CJ Abrams, James Woods, and Jarlene Susana, who's one of the top 100 prospects I was talking about, which I was looking him up. That guy throws absolute gas. Has hit 102 at a times and has a low 90s changeup. But like, you've got those 4 guys, and then you also signed Josh Bell back for a year and change of Juan Soto. Like that's a fantastic deal. You got to be happy so obviously if you're a Nationals fan, you don't want to get rid of Juan Soto. Like he is who he is, but you now have gotten your 1-hole, your 3-hole hitter, you got your 5-hole hitter back, and you have your ace. And another top 100 prospect that's supposed to come up next year.
And tanking isn't really a thing in baseball. However, with Dylan Cruz, it in a way is, because he was on an accelerated path to the MLB because they sucked.
Yeah. Well, and they're in a position where they're a big enough market where they have to be like really bad to get a top pick. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of times I forget the exact rules of it. Yeah, I forget the exact rules of it, but it's like if they're not super bad, they can't pick in the top 10 because their market's too big, which I think is kind of stupid, but I get it.
Yeah. This is what happens when, as an organization, you understand when it's time to cut a stud loose and not mortgage the future for it, just to like keep them around because he's a fan favorite. Like Juan Soto, great player. Do you wish you still had him? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, they're in a great financial spot now, and they have a legit team. They're still a couple years away for sure, but now they have the flexibility and the pieces in place to start kind of putting the foot on the accelerator and attacking.
It kind of reminds me of like the Cubs post World Series, like that core falling apart. It's like for the most part, these guys were all dealt at the exact right time. Like I don't know the haul that they got for Trey Turner, and then Scherzer, and I mean Strasburg basically just died, but Harper had already left. Like they got rid of talent when it was right to do it, and now they've got a whole nother crew, which hopefully CJ Abrams kind of figures it out. But this core is very good, and I'm very excited to watch them. I'm not excited for when my Reds play them, because especially in Great American Ballpark, because a lot of these guys can hit home runs.
Yeah, they'll hook a couple into right field, short porch.
Yeah, so Nationals are obviously very exciting, but let's move on to the 3 most exciting teams in this division. Well, actually, one you could argue, but based on it is and it's not. Anyway, the standings from last year, we're going to move on to the Mets now. So very interesting team here. Let me pull up my sheet. So their key departures on offense. I don't know if many other people would agree that this is a key departure, but Jose Iglesias is the keyest of all departures in the league. Just kidding. Jake and I love Jose Iglesias. Never understood why that guy hasn't signed a long-term contract.
I know you like Nick Castellanos, just as a person and as a ball player. But did you hear his commentary on Jose Iglesias? It's probably a month ago. He had mentioned that Jose Iglesias is like the true MVP of this Mets team.
I did see that, yeah.
Because of the leadership, the camaraderie that he brought. Like, it wasn't that long ago. Like, remember when Javi Baez went to the Mets and they were doing like this thumbs down thing as a celebration, and like the Mets fans were just booing the team left and right, and because it was pretty much like you guys stink, we're out here playing, like we're gonna do whatever we do, like sign. Like that's where that they were bonding over, is like the hatred of the fans, which is really weird move, especially in New York.
Yeah, it's such a weird move.
But now all of a sudden, like you still have like a lot of that core here, and now all of a sudden they just seem like a very like tight knit crew, and a lot of that has actually been attributed to Jose Iglesias with the "oh my God" thing. Like, I'm stunned that they didn't. Like, he's not on a team right now. Like, give him the minimum and stash him.
I got tricked into earlier thinking that they did re-sign him, but I completely misread something. But they're like the guy. I won't be so asinine to call him a stud, but like if you look at career fielding numbers, I know we don't care that much about fielding on this pod, but the guy's like the greatest shortstop of all time.
He's like, a joy to watch.
As far as putting butts in the seats, no. But as far as fielding percentage, he's like top 3 all time. It's absurd.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling frisky, I'll throw that chart on this edit. But
I mean, think of how much
his shortstop stats blow Derek Jeter out of the fucking water. So, but Derek Jeter is also like the worst shortstop in history. But
I mean, think of like Brandon Crawford, right? Like when he was on the Giants, he was a very key player on like those Buster Posey like championship teams, and nothing about his offensive game is sexy, but like Jose Iglesias was essentially the same player in a lot of ways. Like he had a bat. He wasn't useless. Like he can hit for average. Yeah. He's not going to stun you with power. But yeah, he's just like such a steady, smooth.
Yeah, he's a lesser bat than Luis Ariz, but can actually play the field.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good comp, to be honest.
I'll take it. I mean, he did hit 337 last year.
I don't know. He's like a good player. I don't understand.
It's only on half a season, but
still, like I know we've been talking about this for probably 5 years now. Obviously, Todd's brand.
We've been talking about this since he was a Tiger.
Yeah,
like even before he was on the Reds, and we watched him all the time. Like
we're the number one fans. If he ever sees this and wants to come on the pod, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, like all right, since his last season in Detroit, so in 2018 he went 269. He hit 269 with the Reds. He hit 288. In the shortened COVID year, he had 273. 2021, please hold while I wait to click this button. With the Angels, he hit 259, but then got traded to the Red Sox and hit 356. Now with the Rockies, he hit 259 or 292. Mets 337. Like the guy can hit for average. It's crazy.
Yeah. And never gets a contract.
He's always like the last fiddle, and I just don't get it.
I hope it's
he's also decision. Like, and other people care about fielding. The guys can glove it like everybody else in the league.
Yeah, it's not like
he's 35, so I get that. But
still, like he's a great guy to have in your clubhouse. Like if I'm a bad team or a young team, like put him on the Nats. We just talked about them and how young they are.
I would hope at this point in his career he doesn't want to do that, but
I do too, and that's why I hope he's not on a team, because he knows that he can kind of wait around, and if he signs in the middle of the year, he can like hand pick what contender he wants to go to. That's what I'm holding out for, just for his sake, because if he's truly being disregarded by the entire league, that's wrong, and I don't stand for that.
Take a stance, Jake.
I don't know. All right, let's get into their actual team.
Yeah, that was talking Jose Iglesias for far too long. Although we do love him. Love you, Jose.
Yeah.
Come,
most of this team's the same.
Join our pod.
As far as the hitters go, this team's the same as it was last year. Obviously, Juan Soto.
Was that a joke?
No. Well,
I was going to say.
For the most part, they are the same. They have the top free agent signing in Juan Soto. Obviously, he's going to improve any team. It actually moves Starling Marte to more of a platoon bench role, which I think is interesting. Obviously, he's getting a little older, however, still a very capable player. So it just goes to show the depth of their lineup, having a guy like that on the bench. Also, Luisano Acuna, the younger of the Acuna brothers, one of the top prospects last year. Very little service time, only 16 days, but he can rip the cover.
Way longer than that.
No, he was
because they were in the playoffs for so long.
Yeah. He's a September guy, but yeah, he can rip the cover off the ball also on their bench. Like, they don't have a hole anywhere in their hitters whatsoever.
They also traded for Jose Siri, but that was like right after the World Series, so easily forgettable.
I'd also be remiss not to mention my boy, Mark Vientos, who is an absolute stud. Yeah, absolute stud, which I think he gets lost in this lineup a little bit. Might be why he, like, at some point you got to get guys out. It's just not going to be very easy with Lindor, Soto, Alonso, and Nimmo. They have a lot of money tied up in all of those guys. Like Vientos, I think, is the first guy you're like, all right, let's attack him. And that is a big mistake because he's really, really good at baseball.
You know what you got to love if you're a Mets fan? Is that 5 of your projected starting hitters, well, and they're not platoon guys, all were drafted by them or signed. But then, like, you also made all the right trades. Like, Frankie Lindor's been there forever. You got Juan Soto now here forever. Jesse Winker and Jose Siri, both Reds, shout out. But, like, those are 2 great guys to fill in there. And then you also just have Steve Cohen as your fucking owner who, let's say, any of these guys get hurt, he can easily just go pay Jose Iglesias, our boy, and come back, or just do whatever he needs to do to make this team better. Like, that's the fun part about this, is that he has all this money, but he doesn't have to spend it. Like, going to get Juan Soto was his first big splash, and then obviously the Pete Alonso new deal. But
right, people are always going to be up in arms about him and how much money they have and the advantageous situation that the Mets find themselves in because of it, plus the big market. Like, people are always going to, like, pitch a fit about that, but the reality is the core of their team is homegrown. They didn't do it that way. They're doing it exactly how you should. Get your core with your own organization, and then once you identify that you have a winning opportunity, go blow all the money in the world to get whoever you need in there to deliver a World Series. And that's exactly where they are, and that's a very real possibility this year.
Yeah. What's crazy to me, too, is that most of this team has been here for, like, a long time, too. Mm-hmm. Like, of their starting 9, Mark Vientos has the lowest amount of service time, and he's at, like, just under 2 years. And then Francisco Alvarez is right above him, which he just came up a couple years ago. But, like, everybody else has well over 3, and you've even got guys in 6, 7s, 8s, 9s. Like, this is a fun team because they've had this main core for a long time outside of Soto, but they just, and everybody ranks them so high at the start of every year, and then they just don't perform. But last year, them actually performing was very fun to watch, and I was happy to finally see it. I don't hate the Mets. Like, I feel like people generally tend to like the Mets just because they're not the Yankees. And so even though that's not necessarily a thing anymore, like, who knows, maybe people start liking the Angels because they're not the Dodgers, but well, maybe not. But it's going to be fun to see how Steve Cohen battles the Dodgers.
Yes.
in years to come.
Yeah.
Because he's just going to keep throwing. He's going to be the new them and has more money than them.
Yeah. Not to go back too far, but you mentioned that a lot of these guys have been there for a long time. Like, they're not old, though. The oldest guy on their roster, outside of Starling Marte, who I mentioned, who's already on the bench, is Jeff McNeil. And guess what? He plays second base, and you have Acuna on the bench. Like, you already have a built-in replacement for that. So, this team is going to be around for a while.
Correct. No, I'm excited for him. But as far as prospects then in the field, they got a guy named Jet Williams. He's supposed to come up. Oh, yeah. He's supposed to be up this year. He's listed as a shortstop / outfielder, which, based on the scouting profile I read, I feel like he's going to be very similar to Matt McClain or like a Jose Altuve. He's 5'6" and apparently fast as hell. So, but he's got a decent bat. I don't think he's supposed to be nearly as powerful as those two that I mentioned, but it's just he seems like a funny guy that, like, anytime that somebody's 5'6" making it, I love it. Because it's fun. Because then you got guys like Ellie, who's an entire foot taller than this guy. But that's why baseball is fun. Because you just have such a broad span of what a player looks like. Especially like when you got fat pitchers, then you got an absolute tank of human beings and Tyler O'Neill. Like, it's crazy. I love it.
I love it.
But
I love that you
went on that weird
short kings.
Oh yeah, I love it. But then they also have the number 100 prospect in Carson Benji, Bang. I don't know, but he's an outfielder. Supposed to come up in 2 years. I didn't go into a deep profile on him. Do you have anything to add on their lineup?
Brett Beatty was up last year. It didn't go great, but he's supposed to be good. At least was supposed to be good. So we'll see how that pans out. I know. Well, they're just active, I think. I don't think it's necessarily like they're about to work out a deal necessarily, but they talked about Starling Marte moving as well. So just, like another bat that might not be might not be on the opening day roster, but still somebody who in a pinch can pitch it.
There was I can't seem to find it right now, but there was some like high profile trade that was getting talked about that like he was specifically named, but I just can't remember what it was. So we'll move on. They're pitching. So they do have some key departures, but they also have at least one big key add. So they did lose Luis Severino and Jose Quintana, who are respectively their first and third innings eaters from last year. But they also added Clay Holmes, who has been a reliever for quite a bit, but they are going to stretch him out to become a starter, which should be fun to watch. Outside of that, in their rotation, they got Kodai Senga, who they hired from Japan a couple years ago. David Peterson, who they drafted in 26, was hired. Funny to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair. But then I also like Paul Blackburn. I can't say I've watched him a whole lot, but I know he's good. I've bet on his behalf. Or not on his behalf. Sorry. I've bet with him pitching plenty of times. Yeah, I don't want to get Paulie B in trouble. And then Griffin Canning, that's another guy that I've actually bet against a couple times, but
I don't think he's good at all.
We don't. No, he's ranked at 205, but I don't think, at least not my limited experience with him being with the Angels for so long. I don't have a huge exposure to him, but
no. The thing is,
every time I've looked up a game that he started, he's stuck. So
yeah, he's supposed to be the fifth starter, and they have two huge injuries in the starting rotation, and Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas. So I think their rotation to start the year could potentially look weak, at least depth-wise, but realistically, you're only going to need a couple starts out of some of these guys and then they'll have a bunch of options and be able to ride hot hands or whatever, assuming that Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas are, key components of that starting rotation this year.
Yeah.
What are your
Did you
thoughts on
just
David
say
Peterson?
Frankie Montas?
Yes, twice.
Yeah. I was reading their injured list, so I thought I heard you say it, but I was also reading his name, so
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if I just read it or you said it. But another ad they did make was AJ Minter, who has been really good in past years, but he did have hip surgery back in August. I didn't look up to see when he's supposed to be back, but he is a good reliever, and he's a lefty, so that's something. They only have 2 lefties in their pen right now, one of which is a non-roster invite. So it'll be interesting to see when he comes back if he just slides right in there, or if they do the whole extended rehab thing like plenty of other players have done in the past. What do I think of David Peterson? I don't know if I have too strongly of an opinion. I know he's good.
Yeah, so the numbers were really, really good last year. I'm excited to see if it pans out and he can repeat that. He's been around for a couple years now. Last year, he made huge strides, ERA under 3. In 2023, in the same amount of starts, he had an ERA of over 5. So, drastic change. Just excited to see kind of how that plays out. What Peterson are we going to get this year? Because I think he has to be good for them. He'll be their starter regardless of who else is in the rotation. He'll be in there. So just kind of something to keep a note of because they'll need a good performance out of him to have any sort of legs in this tough division.
Yeah. So I'll be completely honest. Every single time I hear David Peterson, for whatever reason, my brain immediately starts thinking of David Robertson. I don't know why. It just always does.
Different guy.
Completely different guy. But both pitchers. So it's not crazy far off. But no, he is really good. Has an unreal fastball. Off speed's real good. He's a big ground ball rate guy at 50.8.
It doesn't look like watching him pitch he's not overpowering you. It doesn't look like he'd be super, super good, but yeah, I mean, it's all about getting consistent weak contact for him. And last year he was a master at it. It kind of seemed, at least to me, like watching him sporadically that it almost gave off smoke and mirror vibes of he's getting away with stuff, but a lot of what doesn't translate on the TV is the deception. So he must be doing something funky to consistently get these weak ground balls, even on mistake pitches. It just never seemed like he had to pay for it. So is it variance, and all of a sudden he's back to the old Peterson where he's getting whacked around a little bit? Maybe. I think more than likely he'll be good again. He definitely put in a large enough sample size last year. I don't know. I'm going to watch closely to see how that unfolds.
Yeah. What's fun looking at his Savant page, the last 4 seasons, he's been in, I believe it was 77th percentile or better in ground ball rate every single one of those years. Even in 2021, where he didn't have the greatest run value on some of his pitches, and in 2022 and 2023, he still is getting that crazy ground ball rate. And it's not like he's just constantly throwing curveballs and getting people to swing over top of it. He has 5 different pitches listed. He doesn't use any one more of them more than 30%. So it's like the guy, he mixes his pitches well. Yeah, he keeps people guessing, hitting grounders. He does tend to get hard hit a little bit, but
a lot of ground ball guys do.
Mostly it's just hard hit grounders. Yeah.
And I mean, that kind of works to your benefit sometimes. A weak grounder can be more damaging than a hard hit grounder a lot of times.
Yeah. I feel like it's more, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I feel like it's easier to defend a hard hit ground ball because it's kind of just instinct. You just go get it.
Also,
But like those soft ones,
set up.
sometimes you
Defenses are set up for you to hit the ball well.
yeah.
So when you don't hit the ball well,
Yeah,
like that's why little like dinkers get into the outfield, and there's like swinging bunts are almost always hits.
Yeah, I agree.
I do think it's interesting that the whole league seems to not necessarily be deprioritizing power, but I think we're starting to finally get away from the three true outcomes, and speed is becoming a bigger thing. Definitely like a shortening of the base paths,
I love that.
the pitch clock, all that, and the limited throwovers of last year translated to a lot more steals. But I think we're seeing a lot more like contact guys to be able to pair with the speed on base and really open up offenses a little bit more. So I don't think being a ground ball pitcher will be as advantageous going forward. I don't think like now's the year where he's going to take a huge step back by any means, but now with speed, runners in motion, defenses having to adjust and move around mid play, you might see some of these ground balls turn into hits more often for him. I don't think that's a huge deal, especially he's lefty, so you'd think he can hold runners on fairly decent. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
That's a topic for another day,
Yeah.
just the transition of the game. But just wanted to mention that
I love it.
I think it does
I feel like
effect.
Yeah, I feel like the power is still there, but everybody's faster. Like every single, like I would venture to say that 90% of the position players that are in the top 10 or top 100 prospects, all of them grade really high in speed. It's crazy. Yeah. Like it's going to just become such a fast league. Like there's just not quite like Billy Hamilton's everywhere, but like above average speed guys that I personally think that the speed type plays are the most exciting. Like stolen bases, hit and runs, like the more advanced stuff, like delayed steals and all that jazz. Like that stuff's the most fun because it's also like a mental game type thing as well.
Just puts pressure on the entire game. Like anything can happen. You aren't just sitting around waiting for a home run, which is more enjoyable to watch for me.
Which it's good baseball, but it's boring.
Right.
Like home runs are fun.
I wish the MLB would make it easier for you to be able to watch the exciting plays, but now you need 15 different streaming services, and it's ridiculous. Like if you want to grow the game, let people watch it. It's a really good product right now. I love where the game's at today. I like where it's headed. So we'll see. All right, you ready to move on?
Yeah. So the only other thing I wanted to add was their bullpen is like a 50-50. Their lower leverage guys all kind of stink, but they've got a pretty good back four setup too. And Edwin Diaz in the closing spot, Buto and Reed Garrett as your setup guys, and then Ryan Stanek, who they traded for last year. Like that's a pretty solid four. So if they can get some innings out of their starters, get a lead, they're looking pretty good to win any game.
I agree.
All right. Let us move on to Los Bravos. All right. I've noticed I do that a lot, by the way. Continuing to start with the hitters. So key departures. You got Jorge Soler, who they traded away like the day after the World Series last year. Travis d'Arnaud, Gio Urshela. I also listed Adam Duvall and Whit Merrifield. I don't know how much they really contributed last year, but those are decently bigger names. They're both getting older, but still notable. But the key ads, one of your favorites, as we talked about in episode 0, Jurickson Profar. Big ad. Then they also got Brian De La Cruz, who is known to hit some absolute tanks. And then they're also expected to get Ronald Acuna Jr. back in early May-ish. They haven't quite said an exact timeline, but early May is what I read earlier. But this lineup, top to bottom, is just fantastic. They've got their number 62 in the MLB, but number 2 overall, prospect Drake Baldwin, slated to start in at catcher this year. I'll be honest, I didn't look at their lineup before Sean Murphy broke his ribs,
but I don't know if he was slated to start or if he was slated to be a
Yes.
backup or if he was slated to start AAA. But now he is listed in there as the starter, hitting in the 7th hole. Like outside of their last 2 hitters, this is an elite. Well, I can't speak for Drake Baldwin. I have never watched him play, but this top 6 is elite. Like the fact that Ozzy Albies is hitting 6 is just like it's laughable. Like their team is just their lineup is just unreal.
Yeah, they finished 6 games back last year of the Phillies. So even without Acuna, and then we'll get into Strider in a little bit here, like without those guys, their 2 best players, arguably, they were still competing. And then to that, you add Jerks and Profar to cover the Whit Merrifield and Adam Duvall misses. Like, they got better. So I expect them to be good. I think it's one of the best run organizations. Don't need to spend too much time here because like all these guys we know who they are. Really exciting team to watch. I think coming opening day, they're just going to be a fraction of what they end up being. You mentioned Acuna coming back shortly. The injury to Sean Murphy, he'll be back shortly, like kind of in the April-May timeframe. For the most part, where all of a sudden their whole roster will be whole. And I think that's a really good situation for them. I don't think the guys necessarily need a whole lot of time to ramp up from you missed spring training, you're going to struggle for a month. Like they're that good that I don't think it really matters. And then they have other additions like Ryan De La Cruz on the bench. Like he's definitely a usable piece. Had a couple good years in Miami. I think him not having to be like a 3-hole hitter on this team will do him a lot of good. Kind of get more fastballs and whatnot. Just not being the main guy that you have to worry about beating you anymore. It's a big difference going from Miami and that squad to the Braves. So I'm good on I'm good on the hitters. I know I covered Profar in episode 0, so I'll kind of stay there. I think he'll be a solid player, but all you.
It's just wild to me that Jerks and Profar has just under 11 seasons of service time just because like he just came out. Like he's always been average, above average, but like
I wouldn't even say that.
He's
a top prospect and didn't do anything until 2 years ago.
All right, fair. But like it's like the moment the guy hits 10 years of service time, all of a sudden he just figures it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget or don't think I forgot about you calling the Padres organization. Hey, we will be revisiting that throughout the season. The only other person I really wanted to stand out and talk about.
His first episode jitters.
Yeah, I was nervous.
Although it is still a little fishy.
All right.
The biggest thing is you can't struggle that much in Colorado and then overnight figure it out in San Diego. Like you're going from the best hitting conditions possible to some of the worst hitting conditions possible. And he absolutely tore it up.
He just needed to be in a good city. Have fun.
I don't think it's
just making stuff up.
No, I don't think there's cheating allegations out there. So let me set the record straight. That was more of a joke. But I do think that there's something with the Padres, most likely a hitting coach that changed an approach, changed a little tweak in his swing that obviously worked out very well. And now he's changing teams. So it's just something to pay attention to. Can he repeat? Can he continue to be an all-star level player, or is he going to return to old Jerks and Profar? I doubt that's the case. I think he'll still be a good player regardless. But we'll see.
Yeah. Then the only other player I just wanted to point out is just the simple fact that I love Michael Harris. The guy's so fun to watch. And fun fact, he's like a month or 2 older than Drake Baldwin, who's just making his debut this year. So he's got 3 years in the bigs already. He came up when he was 21, and the guy's just been unbelievable for this team since. Yes, that's all I have for hitters, so we can move to the pitchers. Key departures. Pretty big one. You got Max Farid, Charlie Morton, AJ Minter. Key adds, not a whole lot other than Spencer Strider's coming back early 2025. They won't specifically give a date so that there's not the whole like setback drama and whatnot. They also kind of signed Hector Neris. He's non-roster invite. I remember he had not been very good the last couple of years, but at least not for your Cubbies. But he is power ranked at 48, so I would assume he's going to make their team. Then the only other pitching ad I need to make is that they do have a prospect. So he is only supposed to come up in 2028, so that's 3 years away. He was just drafted, but Cam Kiminiti is a left-handed pitcher, number 88 overall. You should probably expect to see him continue to rise up that, assuming he keeps getting better, and that he, like, the incoming draft classes don't just overtake him. As far as their rotation, great up and down. So even with Ian Anderson kind of being your sixth man here per se, with eventually Spencer Strider coming back. Obviously Chris Sale won the Cy Young last year. Reynaldo Lopez, which I did not know that he had 7 years service time. Spencer Schwallenbach was awesome last year. Grant Holmes was awesome last year. Like it's fun to see teams like this that have a great lineup and then also just have studs for rotation. I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, I think it all starts with Chris Sale. Obviously, he's incredible. He seems to be defying Father Time. He's getting up there in age, but he's just got the funky delivery. Somehow stays healthy with that sidearm slinging mentality that he has, but he's just filthy. Spencer Strider, assuming he comes back ready to go. I mean, it's a pretty routine surgery at this point, so no concerns there. And then Reynaldo Lopez, who I know you were shocked by 7 years of service time. I wasn't. I'm very familiar with him. He was a White Sox for a long time. It was rocky, and like at first I'm like, this guy seems like he's got a really live arm, and got rocked nonstop. And then ever since really like 2021, he figured it out, and he's been nothing short of dominant really ever since. So I expect him to be good again. He's really in the prime of his career. He's actually coming off an all-star year last year. So definitely they have a bunch of pieces in this rotation. Didn't even mention kind of Schwellenbach, young guy, pitched really, really well for him last year. And then you kind of talk about Ian Anderson, who he was good. He was supposed to be good, fell off the face of the earth. The mere fact that he's back, to me, says that he's figured something out. We'll see if that is true or not, or they just have a lack of depth in the minor leagues. I know they've kind of been in win mode for a while already, it seems like. So, and you mentioned prospects very far away. So it might just be he's getting a second chance because of all that. But we'll see if he can put it together at the MLB level again. Yeah. Then their pen, I mean, a bunch of just really solid guys up and down. I expect them to really be able to hold on to any leads that this lineup and rotation should get them with a lot of regularity this year.
Yeah. And then they also have Joe Jimenez on IL. He had cartilage cleanup.
He's out for the whole year.
Is he?
Yeah. Expected to be out.
Oh, cartilage repair. For some reason I read that as
almost the whole year.
Never mind. But he himself does rank really high, but obviously out for pretty much the whole year. But getting him back near the end of the season, it sounds like potentially for playoffs would be massive.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, you always trade for bullpen arms anyway. That's kind of a trade within itself.
Yeah, it's good when you don't have to make a move and you can improve your team.
Yeah. I'm shocked that Raisel Iglesias is still as good as he is.
Me too.
Because there was a stretch there where he was definitely good, but he wasn't what he is now. Like,
yeah, it was when he first went to the Angels, right? He struggled. Am I remembering that right? Or was it the tail end of the Reds?
his tail end of the Reds wasn't the best. And then he was getting really expensive. So I'm pretty sure, I don't remember exactly when he left, but I think we were kind of hitting rebuild mode. And so we traded him or just didn't re-sign him. But I remember he started off very not good with the Angels and then just found it again and has been dominant since.
Yeah.
So that's fun as a Reds fan. It's pretty cool. Do you, sir, have anything else to add for the Braves?
Nope, I'm good to move on.
Bet. All right, the final team in this division, the 2024 AL East winning Philadelphia Phillies. We'll start again with the defensive side of the ball, or I guess offensive, and the batters. Key departures, and this one's a massive one. Austin Hayes, the Reds stole him. Guy actually I think he hit a triple earlier. Either that or his RBI single, I forget. It doesn't matter. Anyway, that's just me putting my Reds cap on. That's really their main key departure. Key adds, there's really only one on the hitting side. It's Max Kepler. I've liked him for a while, but he's just been on the team that I just constantly say stinks. He's been on the Twins for a very long time. He should be a good ad. I think he'll replace what Austin Hayes was supposed to be with them, which Austin Hayes had some sort of infection like all last year, and it just like really messed with them. And they didn't find out about it until like the end of the year. And it was just like he had just been playing with this infection for like 3 months, and it was just messing him up. But their lineup top to bottom is just unreal. I love it. Like the fact that Brandon Marsh is hitting 9th, Bryson Stott's at 8th, like Rio Muto hitting 7th. It's crazy to me. And the fact that they were just trying to trade Alec Boehm all offseason. Like it's a fun lineup to look at. It is interesting to see Kyle Schwarber out of the one hole here. How do you feel about that, Jake, as a Cubs fan? And maybe number one Kyle Schwarber fan of all time.
I do love me some Kyle Schwarber. I like it. I like that he's in the 2-hole, honestly. Typically my lineup construction, like give me any random team. I like a power hitter in the 2 spot because they're wasting so many of his home runs. Like he's a 40+ home run guy a year potential, and 10 of those are going to be leadoff home runs, like leading off the game.
But how many times is, like, obviously Trey Turner's a good hitter, and he's going to be on for him at least a couple times when Schwarber hits a home run. But like, how many times is that actually going to happen that Trey Turner's on and Kyle Schwarber hits a home run in the top of the first or bottom of the first, whatever it is?
I mean,
4 times, 5 times,
maybe. I mean, that's 4 or 5 extra runs just by changing the lineup.
Yeah.
But also, like, you don't have like a Trey Turner stuck behind Kyle Schwarber when he walks.
Yeah. When you hear the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates of the Caribbean, yeah, running flat-footed. I guess it's a little bit more selfish for me in terms of Kyle Schwarber too. Is ever since he's been like this perennial like home run masher, he keeps being put at the number 1 like leadoff spot in the lineup. So I don't think we really have a good gauge on like what Kyle Schwarber's capable of from like a run producing number standpoint. I know that doesn't necessarily translate into wins. Like obviously he's a very valuable leadoff hitter. He sees so many pitches. He walks a ton. He's got a great eye for the strike zone. He can do damage, all that good stuff. He's at least a smart base runner, whatever that gets you for how slow he is. But like being in the 2-hole, I think it opens up a lot more like driving in run opportunity for him. And I'm just excited for him and myself to see like what that can turn out to be if he truly does hit second in this lineup.
Fun fact, he's actually 15th percentile in sprint speed. So it's not like he's the slowest in the league.
Yeah, but it takes him a while to get going.
That man's hauling a lot of payload.
Yeah, it'll take him 80 feet to get up to that speed.
Yeah. And we talked about this on episode 0, but I think it's just absolutely hysterical that of their starting 9 that
Brandon Marsh somehow is the youngest. Like,
Yeah,
I still don't get it. Like, how is he younger than Bohm and Stott?
he looks
He
old.
just, I think it's the beard and the long hair, but he just looks old, and I feel like he's been in the league forever.
He's got an old heart, maybe.
And like he only has just over 3 years of service. I feel like I've been watching this guy play baseball for 8 years.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
He has some doppelgangers out there. Like, for as unique as he looks, like, remember, like, Jason Worth? They look the same.
I almost just said Jason Kipnis, but yeah, it was Jason Worth, which
Uh,
I believe also played for the Angels.
Yeah. But you also just bring up a good point of he's the youngest. Like, that's my main concern with this lineup is they start to show a
He's only
little bit of
27.
age. I get that, but, like, Castellanos is 33 now.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely, like, from a fielding aspect, has taken significant steps back to the point where, like, the athleticism is leaving. He can still hit, but does he start to regress a little bit? Obviously, he's had like a number of really good years in a row. The dude's born to hit baseballs.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see on that. Real Muto being 34 and still catching is a little bit concerning.
Free agent at the end of this year, too.
Right. Like, I guess he's motivated and he's been good. Like, I don't think it's a likely scenario that these guys take a huge step back by any means. But if you're searching for a hole to poke in this lineup, that might be it.
Yeah. It's also wild to me that Max Kepler's 32. Like, an anti-Brandon Marsh, like, I feel like I just started watching him a couple years ago, and he has over 8 years of service time. But brings me to a point. 6 of their starting 9 all have over 8 years of service time. Like, to your point with their age, got a lot of vets in this team, which all 6 of those guys are still really good too.
Yeah, they can still swing it. Max Kepler. So I know you are a fan of him. I haven't.
I just like him because he was born in Germany, and that's just not a very common thing in the MLB.
So he hit 36 home runs in a season with the Twins way back in 2019. Ever since then, he has been ridiculously erratic. He has 3 seasons with sub 10 home runs. I feel like he's been
crazy hurt too.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't consistently been on the field, but like he played more games than you'd think. Like for a lefty player who's like kind of in a platoon situation at this point, like he played 130 games in 2023, only 105 last year. But I mean, he's over 100 games in each of the last 4 years since COVID. So just like very, very erratic. Like 2 years hitting above 250. 1 year he hit 211. When he hit 211, he hit at 19 home runs, so at least he was doing something. But in 2 of the last 4 years, he's sub 10 home runs. Like, I have no idea what Max Kepler is here to play baseball. And you're in Philly now. You better perform, otherwise, like, it's not going to last very long.
Maybe being just around this team and actually like a stud of the lineup will help push him in the right direction as far as becoming more consistent and seeing winning baseball. Like the Twins have been playing in the AL Central, but I feel like it's where they're getting a lot of wins, but like they kind of hit the playoffs and just freeze. So I think
you aren't just a believer in them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think he could do very good things for this team, and he's one person I'm really going to be watching this year, mostly because of the little fun fact that he's German born and whatnot. But I've just always kind of liked him for some reason. There's like no real reason to, but like he's good.
He'll be a good person that we can make a little bet as far as where he ends up on the year.
Yeah.
When we get a little closer to opening day.
Yeah, because it's not like he has a really good replacement waiting in the wings. Like,
no, they're counting on him. Yeah, and that makes me nervous. But then again, like he could be terrible, and you can hide him in this lineup, no problem.
Yeah, he hits behind Bohm and Castellanos, and then right behind him is Real Muto and Stott. Like,
yeah,
I think they'll be all right.
Yep.
Unless he just comes up with a lot of 2-out counts and with bases loaded. So I was looking up him and trying to figure out if he was the best German-born baseball player so far. And as far as WAR, he is the best. But as far as games played, he has 2 more seasons to eclipse the most games played. That's over Glenn Hubbard. Not that that's that cool of a thing. But fun fact, Edwin Jackson was born in Germany. So is Ron Gardenhire, and a man who played from 1884 to 1892. Pretzels Gitzin.
What a name. I was going to say, most of those guys very well could be U.S. families.
Yeah.
On like military.
Born in Germany.
Interesting. Did not see
Those
that.
are the only names that I really recognize. But it's
Pretzels,
just,
what a good name.
Pretzels Gitzin.
Love that.
Career 18 WAR. Anyway.
Give me a deep dive on him in the dog days of the summer when we're just trying to power through some of these episodes.
Pretzel Gitzin. I think I've said his last name differently every single time. All right. Last thing to touch on hitters. They do have they have 3 prospects in the top 100. They got number 27 with Aiden Miller. He's a shortstop. He's supposed to come up next year. His scouting report basically says he's a big boy and they could move him to third, but so far professionally in the minors, he's always stayed at short. Then they do have Justin Crawford, who's an outfielder, supposed to come up in 2 years. He's number 63. Number 92, Eduardo Tate. He's a catcher coming up in 3 years. I didn't look up Crawford or Tate too much. But it will, speaking of him being a catcher, it will be interesting to see what they do with J2 Orito. I got to think that they're just going to sign him. But
you think they're going to keep him?
I mean, why not? They don't have anything else great in the background.
Yeah,
unless
but you can
they make
somebody
some
else.
Big splash.
I feel like he's still going to ask for a lot of money relative to age.
Because not only is he a good hitter, he's also like one of the best defensive.
Also, like, why are you going to sign him? Like half your team's like at the tail end of their prime.
Yeah, I mean,
I think you just let this thing just like play out, and you start moving on from some of these guys in a year or two.
Yeah,
and Real Muto, I think, ends up being your first guy.
Yeah,
but we'll see. How about pitchers?
Pitchers. They didn't lose any starting, but they did lose 2 massive bullpen arms for them, Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez. But they did bring in Jesus Luzardo, who we kind of already talked about when we were talking about the Marlins. But then also Jordan Romano, who's a great replacement for either one of Hoffman or Estevez, which I believe Romano didn't pitch at all last year. But then they also brought in Joe Ross, who is more of a innings eater type guy, but more middle relief guy. But he's got plenty of time on his arm. So he'll be a nice solid guy. But as far as their bullpen, that's probably why Jordan Romano's power ranked so low, because he didn't pitch a whole lot last year.
He did pitch, just not a lot, only 13.2 innings, kind of got rocked. Yeah. Obviously, that's very likely to be injury related.
Yeah, usually closers are getting up into the 60s, 70s type innings. But yeah, their bullpen, I forget who else I was talking about when I said 50-50. I think it was the Mets. It's like their back 4 is great. Their previous 4 isn't so great, but that's still a good side to be on. I feel like I remember seeing a whole bunch of Phillies fans shitting on Orion Kerkering on Twitter all the time. At least maybe it was just at the end of the year when every game really mattered. But I remember him being good. And I've for some reason have always really liked Matt Strahm. I think even when he was with the Royals. But that guy is very good. He's also a lefty. I love lefty dominating relievers. It's just fun.
If you want
Jordan Romano, it would be fun to see him on a different team.
If you want a feel-good story to watch, there's a clip of Matt Strahm with his daughter.
Oh, yeah, about the glove?
Yeah. So she a glove designer worked with her to design a glove for him, and he didn't know about it. So it's pretty cool what that turned out.
Cool. I hope he wears that.
I would assume he will, especially with
why
that
not,
becoming
right?
so widely seen as video now. But
Right.
what can you tell me about their rotation? I don't know a lot of these guys.
You're lying to me because all these
I
guys
know,
have been
that was a
around
joke.
forever.
I know, that was a joke.
I mean, they are what they are. Like, there's 4 guys in here who are proven absolute studs, and Wheeler, Sanchez, Nola, and Suarez in that order is how they're projected to kind of fill the opening day roster. And then we talked extensively a couple times now about Jesus Luzardo. We're both pretty high on him. I think this is a great spot for him to thrive. He's always been on a bad team and kind of all eyes on him. Now he can kind of blend in the background, just kind of work on getting outs. And really, the goal doesn't come for the goal isn't for him to throw like 7 shutout innings like it has been in the past. That's the only way his teams would win. Now it's like just get us into the 5th inning, competitive within a couple runs, even. We don't even have to be leading at the time you exit. We have the team around you to really make it look good. So excited for Jesus Luzardo. I think he's good. I think he's capable of more than just 5 competitive innings. I think he can obviously be like a 3 or so number 3 starter on a lot of teams in baseball. And here he's their 5th.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting burps. How do you feel about having 3 lefty starters on your team in your rotation?
Couldn't care less.
I couldn't care less either, but it's fun when teams have stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I love watching lefties pitch. Outside of camera angles at some ballparks are a little tough.
Oh,
so I'd be annoyed as a fan.
Look nasty at lefties because of that camera angle.
Watching like Rich Hill is always fun for me. He's probably he'll be on a team at some point this year as like a 50-year-old man. But he throws like a 65-mile-an-hour like slow looping curveball that on TV looks like it breaks like 50 inches. I swear.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like watching lefties pitch. The only annoying thing is the center field camera in a lot of parks isn't as great for lefties. But yeah, I mean, they all pitch on different days. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. I don't care. I know a lot of people like to like alternate lefties and righties for different. So you get different lineups out there every day. I don't even think that really matters. Like, if you mash lefties and you're scheduled to face a lefty, you're in a good spot. It just is what it is.
You should be able to hit both if you want to be successful in the league.
Right. There's just with the 5 days of rest and whatnot, there's not a whole lot of juggling you can do. It's just luck of the draw. I mean, you need guys to get outs, bottom line, and all these dudes can do that.
Yeah. Then one more thing to point out about this pitching staff. Well, I guess it's actually 2. So they do have an accomplished starting pitcher who has definitely fallen off the last couple of years, but Taijuan Walker is their long reliever. So if they do have a pinch where they need to call somebody else into that rotation, he can step in at least 8 innings.
Joe Ross has started in the past too,
yes.
so they even have him.
Yes, he has.
And that's just at the major league level.
Yeah. But then they also have number 8 prospect in the entire MLB, Andrew Painter, right-handed pitcher. He's supposed to be up this year. I don't know in what capacity. Maybe that'll be end of the year type thing to eat some innings on his arm. And
he's filthy
I don't
apparently.
know.
Like, how?
Yeah.
Where does he fit in though? Like,
I don't know.
What do you do?
I didn't look at any of their contract situations to figure out if any of these guys are like about to just be kicked out, or if they have a super valuable contract where they could trade him. Like, let's say Andrew Painter just goes nuts this year in AAA, to where they're like, we need to get this guy up. I'm gonna look into that, and actually, I think I'll report back on that because I love watching like prospects that just dominate, and you're like, well, we have to make room for this guy, or else we're wasting this guy's stuff. But yeah, he averages 97 on his fastball, hits 100 all the time. So like, that's kind of like in the realm of the Hunter Greens. I almost said Jordan Walker, Jordan Hicks, like those kinds of guys. But he does have 4+ pitches, all with different types of movements. So he's got 4-seamer, curve, change, slider. Like, his slider is moving to the high 80s, low 90s. Like, if he can control those pitches, that's going to be nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not seeing anybody that's really hurt for them. So that's good for them as well.
Do you have anything else to add for the Phillies?
They're obviously in win now mode. A lot of their non-roster invites, I think, are interesting. There are a lot of just like well-seasoned guys who have quite a bit of service time. So, really just trying to plug any holes across the board. If anything were to creep up, they certainly have guys to do that. So, I don't think that's a concern. Which, when you're talking about an old team, sometimes is kind of the first thing I think of. If I'm trying to poke a hole in a contending team, it's like, what happens if? And in this case, what happens if one of their key guys gets hurt? They have a guy who's already been there and done that, that they can have step in. So I think they're in a really good spot.
Yeah, and a lot of the rest of their top 10 are all pitchers too. So that's a fun one to look at as well. Like I've definitely heard of Mick Abel, unless I'm thinking of somebody that has a very, very similar name, but I remember hearing that guy is very good. All right, so let's dive into our standings predictions here, Jake.
All right.
I'll let you kick it off because I feel like I've started on every other team.
Okay. Let's start with the back end. Obviously, the Marlins.
Mm-hmm.
They stink primarily across the board. Then I think the Nationals would come in fourth. I think they're just still too young. I think they're another year away from really being able to like take on the other three of these teams. I think they'll be exciting. I think they'll, play some pretty good ball, especially at certain times. I'm just concerned that they'll be a little bit streaky. And in this division, you're going to have to be consistent because there's three other teams that will be. In third, this is really tough because I think all these teams make the playoffs, by the way. And third, I'll put the Phillies. I think the Phillies are good. I just can see of a way that this falls apart, at least enough to come in third. I don't think they'll be bad by any means. I think that's out of the range of outcomes, but I don't think what's out of the range of outcomes is you see a little bit of a downturn from the lineup. And then even like Aaron Nola, he is very good, obviously, but he has a lot of pitches on his arm. Same with Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler's up there in age, dominant when he's healthy. He's been healthy the last couple of years, but he's had injury issues dating back quite a ways now. So are those cleared up, or does that kind of sneak back up again? I just think there's ways for the Phillies to struggle more than the Braves or Mets. Not even struggle like as a whole relative to the rest of the league, but just not really be able to keep pace.
Yeah.
I think the Mets come in second. I don't believe their starting rotation is going to be good enough. Clay Holmes getting stretched out, a little bit of a concern. Paul Blackburn is good, whatever. They already have 2 injuries in their rotation. They'll get them back pretty soon, but Frankie Montas has certainly struggled from time to time. Also been good. Same with Sean Manaea. Just a little bit weak in this.
Just get really hurt. Sorry,
What's that?
I didn't remember that till now. Didn't
it was just the other day. It's a strained lat.
All right, never mind.
Yeah,
go on.
Yeah, nothing like too much of a concern. It's just when you look at the starting rotation, I don't think they have the top end that's going to be needed in this division to win it. And then obviously coming first, I think it's the Braves. They're one of my favorite organizations in baseball. I know I mentioned when we were talking about them, they finished 6 games back of the Phillies last year. I think they got better, where the Phillies, for the most part, are the same team. Plus, not only did you add like Jerks and Profar, which I think is a net positive, but you also have the return of possibly the best player in baseball, arguably, with Ronald Acuna. Certainly toe-to-toe with Shohei for being just absolute like face of baseball potential. And then Spencer Strider comes back too. Like those are 2 of the biggest additions in any division across any team in baseball. And they have 2 of them, and it's really obviously not traditional additions. It's just they're new to the team since last year because they played so little. So To be 6 games back and then get those 2 guys plus improve your team elsewhere, I think that they're the best team in this division, and I think at the end of the year it should show.
All right. That's wild you put. So, I mean, it's not that wild that you would put Phillies third between those 3 teams. It's just hearing that the Phillies in third is weird. But so to reiterate, you did say that all 3 teams are making the playoffs, though, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, they're all so good. Like, it's splitting hairs, but you have, like, if we're going to make standings projections, you have to at some point.
Curious to see in these next 2 episodes who you then think is the third wild card. Not necessarily the worst, but actually you'll probably say they are the worst. So as far as my projections go, I have the exact same for 5 and 4, Marlins and Nationals. Nationals are so fun to watch. They're young as can be. Like, they're going to be very fun to continuously watch. Great fan base. I hope that they enjoy that this year and just continuously getting better. So my 3 hole, I actually did put the Mets, but that's because of the pitching concerns that I also share with you. The Juan Soto addition was obviously fantastic, but the subtraction of Jose Iglesias, I think, drops them from 2 to 3. It's really the pitching concerns for me. Then I'm actually being kind of boring because I'm doing the exact same order as last year. So I put Braves at 2, Phillies at 1. I think it's going to be – they may even have the same record and Phillies just win a tiebreaker. But I think these top 3 are going to finish – at least they should, barring any massive injuries or anything stupid happening. They should all finish within, like, I would say maximum 5 games of each other. From first to third, I mean. Like, then the second's in there somewhere. But I feel like the Phillies take the crown again this year. And, get home field advantage first round.
Do you also think all 3 of them make the playoffs, or is it too early for you? Do you have to go through the other 2 divisions?
No, I think I do. The only reason I could maybe say one's out is, again, for bad injuries that we never want to wish upon anybody. Or like that.
Is there a possibility that they're all too good and beat each other up and one team misses out because of that?
Yeah, but I think they're good enough that they beat up on everybody else that they play. Like, I don't really see either of these teams like winning like 95 just because they play 26 games against the 2 others. Right. But like, their 93 wins is going to be a good 93 wins. Like, they're all 3 great teams. I do think they're all going to make the playoffs. Then the final wild card, like, maybe the Nationals could fuck around and take that. I don't think they will. They're not quite there yet.
So you're talking silly now.
Yeah, the primary candidates there are Diamondbacks. Obviously, I'm higher on the Reds than other people.
Because I say it.
But I do think, in my highness of the Reds, we'll get to that later, but I think there could be one team out of the Central to take it. I don't know if I think the Giants are good enough to take it. But the D-backs, like, they're obviously a very good team as well, and added a bunch of players this year. I don't know. I think we'll have to see these next couple episodes just to see where I fit on those.
Excited.
But we didn't pull up Pacoda at all on this. I think that it's probably going to be pretty similar to our views on it, because I feel like these standings predictions pretty much just take face value of players. Yeah, so that Braves 93, Mets 92, Phillies 86. So, like, which is your exact order that you had. And then Nationals Miami.
That's the first time I've agreed with their projections.
But, like, I could easily see Washington winning 70 games. It just sucks that they had to play the Phillies, Mets, and Braves.
Right. That's going to do them in, I think. But
they can beat up on 8 of the other 10 teams in the NL that they play 6 or 7 times.
Right.
Maybe beat up's not the right adjective, verb, whatever piece of English that is. But like, I mean, they've got enough talent to do it. I don't know. There's so many teams on these standings that I wholeheartedly disagree with. So, which I know you know who I want to bring up, but like the entire NL Central just doesn't make sense to me. I'll just say that. But
Guess what? We're getting there.
I know. I want to just rant on it, but I can't. Oh, I didn't even mention the Padres for potential wild card, but they've gotten worse. But I love like half their team. All right, that's all I've got.
I'm trying to see FanDuel real quick. I'm pulling up the divisions right now.
Yeah.
Because I've found that these differ quite a bit. So they have the Braves as the favorite, then Phillies, then Mets. Nationals are plus 10,000. And then the poor Miami Marlins plus 25,000.
25?
Yeah.
I forgot what their max.
So
I feel like it always goes 10,000 to 25,000 to 40,000, like on varying sports. But
in a lot of ways, it's funny that the NL East is so similar to the AL East and how we envision it shaking out. Like from a sheer quantity of playoff potential teams, and kind of like same setup. It's the same teams that are returning a lot of players who've been good for a while now.
Yeah. But like with these standings, I just don't believe that the Nationals are only 7 games better than the Marlins.
Yeah.
Like the Marlins stink. How are you saying that? This is the last thing I have to add. How are you possibly saying that a team is only 7 games better than another team when you project them to have the exact same amount of runs allowed, but then Washington scores 60 plus more runs than they do? I don't get it. I don't get it. All right.
Do you have
any final?
Yeah,
my only final. We are every episode.
I know. Well, no, I'm saying like make your model. You know.
It's baseball. You can't predict baseball. Go on.
Yeah. Only sign off words I have is just a reminder we are on social media now. So look out for any postings of the pod through there. That's a good place to find it. As always, reach out if you have any topics that you want us to cover, especially once we get through these divisions. We'll have a little bit more time to devote to kind of like a random agenda topic here and there. But as always, thanks for the support. We're already getting some legs on social media. So thank you all who have already followed along. And look forward to the journey.
We'll tip our caps to you guys.
Cap to the Quackers.
I don't even have anything else to add because that was just so beautifully said.
Thank you.
Hey, pat yourself on the back there, Jay.
Yeah. All right. Hey, another episode down. 2 more to go. Look forward to talking about it.
And then we get into the nitty gritty of baseball. Just every day, every other day, baseball. I love it. All right.
Awesome.
That was talking NL East. Next time we got NL West. We're not arguing over this one. It's NL West because we're saving the best division in all of baseball in the entire world for last. The NL Central.
Grand finale.
But yes, the grand finale. I expect that one to get heated. Maybe we'll make that a little 2-hour special. Just kidding. We'll try to keep it as short as possible, which we keep getting longer and longer with every single episode, even though we were like, oh, let's keep it to an hour. Anyway, NL East down, NL West next. So long, Quackers. Thanks for listening.
See ya.